Welcome back to Leadership, the Secret Sauce with coaches Dave Lipsky and Matt Dodson, where we are delving into the realms of leadership coaching. Join us as we sit down with remarkable leaders and coaches, uncovering their unique strengths and insights and strategies that really make them exceptional. We'll explore the question, what is your secret sauce and when and how did you know? Unveiling the hidden ingredients behind their success. Are you ready? Let's get started. Dave? Oh, I guess before, actually, you know what? Maybe let me just introduce our sponsor. I forgot that, Dave. Sorry about that. Our sponsor is Character Matters Coaching and Consulting, where they believe that your character is the compass guiding you through life's journey. Whether you're facing personal or professional challenges, they are dedicated to helping you discover and strengthen the core values that define who you are. Take it away, Dave.
This is so good, Matt, because it does, like, this reminds me of, like, we've got the crew back together again. Giselle, it's so good to see you. Like, we've worked for a number of years together. We've done a lot of meetings and planning different sessions, and it's just good to be reconnected. So welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
To start off, if you can, if I'm thinking it as the title of the article that introduces you. Like, if you were to introduce yourself, what's the headline of your introduction, and what would that first line be about? Welcome, Giselle.
Yeah. Ooh, I think my headline would be inspiring leaders and teams to be extraordinary.
Awesome. I like it. Succinct headline. And you're all about that. So we look forward to hearing more about your secret sauces that describe how you do that. To start off, we like to do just a check-in and energy level. So on a scale of 1 low, 10 high, what's your energy level right now?
My energy level is I'm an 8. I've got high energy and I'm jet lagged. So my body thinks it's tonight from somewhere else. So I would say, though, that for being in the afternoon of when we're talking, it's pretty high.
Awesome. Thank you for flying in to be on the show.
Yeah.
I feel more important.
Yeah, I'd probably say
Matt, what's your
8.5. I just got back from a conference in San Francisco, and I feel like I've got a million things to talk about that I just have soaked in the last 2.5 days. So, yeah.
Awesome. I want to come in at a 7.5 because I want, like, my chair is a little bit lower, so I feel like that kind of fits the pattern. And you're yeah, there you go. Like, ready? Oompa. Okay, we got the song going. Yeah. Speaking of the song, let's skip the focus question. We'll go right to the song. So is that okay, Matt? Or you have something else?
Oh, yeah. Go right ahead, Dave. I'm used to it. Go for it.
Yeah. Matt has challenges. Giselle, everybody has trouble keeping me on script, and Matt has continued the challenge. So God bless you, Matt. So Giselle, in terms of your, like, walk on or walk off song, what's the song that's playing for you when you're about to go on stage and speak to the crowd, chanting your name?
Well, I could say I have two. I would say in my pregame playlist, a song that I play a lot right before I go on stage, at least for myself, is the Eminem song "Lose Yourself." I love that song. And when I speak and do kind of an inspirational speech, I often like to come off with the Kiela Settle, "This Is Me" from The Greatest Showman on Earth. That's just a really motivating song for me. And when I need to get my head on straight and get really focused I know you're going to ask a focus question. When I have to get really focused and get grounded in my best self, I will either have those songs playing or I'll listen to them right before I go on.
That is awesome. And go ahead, Matt.
Hey, Dave, you know what? For those of you that are listening and you're, like, wondering, how did we get connected to Giselle? So maybe a little bit more background so you can kind of know. I first met Giselle over 10 years ago, actually, when I was asked to go to the Target headquarters, and Giselle was the director of this leadership, this executive coaching and leadership council with the conference board. And that was my first experience. And I was like, wow, this really sort of blew me away. I didn't know many years later that I would end up joining the council, joining the executive committee, spending lots of time with Giselle and Dave, as well as other people that were just really amazing. And one of the things Giselle brought on a regular basis, and whenever we met, was this idea of actually adding music to the times we got together. And it just added a component. Like she would say, hey, what's your top 3 songs? Send them. We want a playlist for the time that we got together. And I just thought it just added something. It was different, right? Because sometimes we can remember things in music and feel things in music that are far more, that are deeper, that are at a personal level. They may bring back memories. And that's what I remember about you, Giselle. So thank you for bringing that again.
Oh, yeah, thanks. That's so sweet.
That's awesome. I remember, I think meeting Giselle in San Diego might have been the first time. And then right after that, I think I was being invited to join the council. And then I was asked, hey, could you host the next session? And I was like, why not? It was fabulous.
That was us role modeling, making a bold request within 10 minutes
I
of
love
meeting.
it. Like, you make things happen. That's what I remember. It's like, we're going to get this stuff done and we're going to make things happen. And you introduced me to such fabulous individuals. So connected, still connected to so many of those people. So I could wax on philosophic forever, but I'm going to turn it back over to Matt to ask the next question.
All right, Giselle. So we have a series of questions. You've seen them. Like, what is your secret sauce? And that, sort of you bring. What do you show up with? What makes you uniquely you?
Oh, wow. I could almost ask you guys to answer that question for me. Well, I would say there are 2 major areas I work in. I do bold leadership work primarily with women leaders, even though we often have some brave men in the room who want to be a part of it. And because they realize actually that it's a leadership conversation, it's not a women's leadership conversation. And so it's more cohort based with coaching circles and so forth. And then I also, as an OD practitioner, build high performance teams. That's usually live with executive teams, like C suite and down, like 1 or 2 levels. And so when you ask me about the secret sauce, I do think there's a thread line between the 2, though I can answer also specifically for each. But the thread line is that I think what makes me and my team a little bit different, that clients tend to appreciate, and actually we get feedback when, if any of our team members are not like this, it's that we are unafraid to say the real thing and speak truth to power, and not be afraid of being fired or not liked. I would think if I could like boil it down to the essence, we're willing to speak and engage. And the way that plays out, like in a high performing team session, if we're working with a CEO and her or his leadership team, and we're coaching them one on one or with the team, we're willing to say whatever we need to say to hold up a mirror. And a lot of times, the higher up you go, the more they appreciate that, because most people are not willing to speak truth to power. And a lot of coaches out there are I've heard at least that they don't tend to do that as much. And so people never know, are they getting the essence? So I think that piece around speaking truth to power, and I think the other element of it, especially in bold, is that we do what I call the 3 C's, and almost in really every bold way that we work with people. And that's that we do share some content. I think you would say we did this at the conference board, right? We share some content. We also do some level of really powerful live coaching so that people get insights and breakthroughs, and not just like check the box coaching, but really powerful coaching, sometimes in front of everybody, which makes it even more powerful. And then thirdly, we've got the community piece. And so while one-on-one coaching is very effective, when you can take that level of vulnerability and authenticity and have people self-disclosing and then getting coached and helping each other within the context of the community, I think that's where the magic happens. So it's really the 3, that's what we call the 3 C's, that really helps make work way more impactful, because the impact is that the work continues when you're not there. And I think our job as coaches is to teach people how to fish and work our way out of a job as quickly as possible, so that we teach them how to give each other the support and create that sustainability. For I have some clients who've gone on for years to continue group coaching that I helped them
Mhm.
start. And that's one of my best, if you will, things I'm most proud of, is when they continue the work without me.
For those of you who know me or who have been around me with and training, coaching, training, Giselle is the one who how I took from the idea of being lovingly provocative. And first heard that, I think in 2013, 2014. And it captured my imagination like, hey, that's our role, is to be bold and do
Yeah.
it in a loving way, but to be provocative where I feel the safety to say something that is provocative, that you would know that it comes from a place that I have a genuine interest in your growth, not just to be brash or raw or or to be like hurtful in my in my honesty. So
Yeah. And I would say I was in Cambridge, right outside of London earlier this week, and a leader I was with was getting some really tough feedback. And I asked myself the question before I went in there with her and spent a day in an intensive with her the day before we worked with her team. How can I both love on her as much as possible and also challenge her to lean in and be her best and hear feedback she had to hear to challenge her to be her best self? And it was a giant question mark. Literally Monday morning, I thought, I wonder which way this is going to go. And by the end of Tuesday, it was amazing to see how much she had heard it and leaned in and was able to really role model it
mm,
with her team.
maybe I'll Dave, you want to ask the next question?
Yeah, I actually that the what you just said, Giselle, like regarding your first sauce of having somebody embrace their own power, right? It's like
Mhm.
I'm very interested in like how do you coach somebody to find their own power, to speak to power? Like, what does that look like?
Well, the first step is that people have to be clear about why they don't feel safe to speak their truth to somebody and to anybody. Could be anybody in their work life or their personal life. And usually the number one thing that I hear, which is I am afraid to speak up because I don't know how receptive they'll be. I'm afraid they'll get defensive or closed, or they won't be able to hear me. And so my recommendation is always that we start with that as the feedback. And whom I learned that from the most are my kids. And if they came to you when they were little and they said, "Mom, I want to tell you something, but I don't want you to be angry," then they could tell me that they, in fact, took my car, taught their friend how to drive when they were underage, hypothetically speaking, not hypothetically, by the way. But because they primed me and said, I don't want you to be angry, right? I was cool as a cucumber no matter what they shared. So if people are afraid to speak truth to power and they don't know how it will be received, then the first conversation can be around, wow, I really want to be transparent with you. And I don't know how that's going to go. I don't know if you're going to really want to hear it. And I don't even know, you can even out yourself. I don't even know if there are going to be repercussions of doing that. One question I like to ask is, I've got some observations. Do you want me to be 100% transparent or just like 82? And so if some, which is another version of what my kids used to do, right? So they always say, I want you to be 100%, but then they're primed and their brains are ready so that they're not being triggered to the same extent as if we just walked in and surprised them and they had an amygdala hijack because they didn't know what was coming.
I like that. Is that child still grounded?
No, he's actually graduating from college in, say it with me, 29 days. 29 days.
20.
Yeah. So now he
Wow.
drives me around in his car. So It's all good. It did take a year to rebuild trust, though. That's a whole other episode we could do on trust. I've got some thoughts about that too.
I like it. The next episode we'll do that, and I'll share with you what my now 25-year-old told me that they used to take my vodka out of the freezer at 16. I don't know. I was kind of, I'm still kind of like still processing.
Yeah.
But it's all good. So how did you learn that, like the sauces that you had shared, how did you learn that that was something that you could use as a coach?
I think, following my intuition and just at first, I think from a long time ago, I didn't realize that it was this part of the secret sauce. I kind of thought everybody did that. And when I started asking clients, clients would give me feedback. We always ask our clients for feedback. And they would usually say, I love that you provoked me. That's actually where I first got the term of being lovingly provocative. And it became part of my realization that I didn't even know until I started asking them, what's resonating for you? And they would just say, please keep provoking, please keep doing it. But you do it. One leader said, I'll never forget, we were actually in London, and he said in his very British accent, when he was introducing me in front of his top, 150 leaders or something, he said, "Oh, Giselle, she's a steel punch in a velvet glove." And I didn't realize that was like an English expression that people say. And at first I was a little taken aback, and I talked to him about it afterwards, and he said, "No, no, no, that's a compliment, because you say what you need to say, and I still feel good about it afterwards." And I think that's the sweet spot that executives are really looking for. How they can still be, well, any leader, any human. How can I hear what you have to say and still be whole and feel good about myself?
Yeah, I keep hitting the screen off as opposed to the mute. So I have to work on my own skills. I just, there's something about the British accent saying a steel punch in the velvet glove
Mm-hmm.
that just sounds so much more delightful than if I used a Brooklyn accent.
Yeah, I know. We could speak British English for the rest of the podcast if only we all knew.
And this has come up, and a lot of students ask this, which you brought up, is how do you create that level of safety
Mm.
while you're also creating that level of accountability, that holding the mirror up.
Yeah. If there were one answer, I would love to be able to give it. I mean, I think back to the sessions that I used to run with both of you, and safety is the most important energy to bring into any one-on-one coaching, team coaching, group. People want to feel safe and connected. So one of the reasons why I would ask you for your songs is because it would help you feel seen and heard when you offered a song and then you heard it in a meeting, and then other people started, moving to it, right? So I think the meta level is to have people feel seen and heard and safe. And I think how you do that varies. Like this week, with the leader that I was with, who I had a big question mark if she was going to be coachable, I actually started in a way I rarely do over breakfast when we started Monday morning. And I told her a number of stories. She asked me how my kids were doing. And I told her a number of stories about one of my kids who was presenting with a fixed mindset and thought he was right and thought it was everybody else who needed to change, which PS were kind of the issues that she was having. And so I told her some stories about my son. And I think there were some ways that it primed her to be super open, curious, receptive, focused on the growth mindset, because we had actually covered some of those things ostensibly while we were talking about my family, right? So I think there are different ways to create safety, but ultimately, and I know one way that it's been broken, not with me, but it was broken with somebody around me. When people tell you things, the confidentiality is it's an absolute non-negotiable. And when you're doing OD work or team coaching work, the lines can be very slippery and a little bit fuzzy when you're interviewing people, but then you're talking to their boss and then you're talking to the other key stakeholders. And so I think safety is knowing that you are a vault, and that when people like this woman who actually, a woman on the team this week, just emailed me today and said, "Can I have a follow up one-on-one conversation with you?" And when I asked her Tuesday, I said, "Do you trust me?" Her answer was blindly. And I said, "Well, we don't want to say blindly, but I know that what she's going to want to talk to me about, she's going to trust that I'm not going to go tell her boss who's my client." So I think that's the level we really want to get at, where you can tell me anything and I will be your vault. And I'll then coach you on how to go have that conversation back with your leader instead of me going and telling her.
Mm. That's really rich. That's I think I've got to know that
Beautifully
my
said.
coach needs what I'm going to tell them is going to stay with them. And
Yeah.
even though they may be privy to a lot of conversations that I don't have, and they don't have to connect a dot. That's a consultant. A consultant connects dots, and kind of shares them, which is very different than a coach, I think. But
Yeah. I also think the other way, because I do need to follow up with this leader's boss, the global president, around like how
mhm,
London went, how Cambridge the Cambridge session went. And so what I told her is that I told her by we were texting, and I said, "This is what I plan to tell these three people. Are you
mm,
good with that?" And she said, "You have my permission." And I said, "Ideally, you'll follow up with those three people and you and I will be aligned in our communication. And everything else we talked about
nice.
is out of bounds." So we talked about that as well. I think that's really important in the high
Yeah,
performing teamwork. Yeah.
yeah. It's the container of confidentiality at a team level.
Yeah, and the way that it plays out in a cohort level with Bold is that a lot of times we'd have women leaders and we'd be hearing things about the company or about their managers. And it was a little bit of a flaming potato that would land in our lap at years and years ago when we weren't as aware of it. And what we did is we built in an opportunity to have the participants feedback observations to their managers, who we called allies. And so we were able to have them share the cohort's observations in a themed way that was built
Mm,
into the structure of the program. Because otherwise, people were expecting us to triangulate, and that would have been a mess for everybody. So we just built in
mm,
helping them to do it directly.
Yeah, there's something about you negotiating partnership, like when you mentioned that with the leader,
Mm.
like with the team leader, like I'm here to partner with you to help you.
Mm.
Do you pre-negotiate that?
Yes, it's all set up front so that, I mean, it's kind of classic. You start with your client, your coaching client, and then ideally, um, the idea is that their manager and their HR person or some other person who's supportive. Ideally, not always. Everybody doesn't always have that, but ideally, I meet with the leader first. I also meet with the leader's leader, like, so it could be the president in HR or something, and I find out what they want me to know that they might not be comfortable saying in front of their client. And again, speaking truth to power, one of the things that's important for us as coaches is to make sure that the leader's leader and the HR person are telling them everything they think from the beginning about what they think the gaps are, instead of using a coaching process to be candid. And then we have a four-way meeting. So I've spoken to everybody ahead of time, and then that four-way meeting or three-way meeting is a way to get everybody on the same page and to just make sure that these are the two or three objectives we're going in with, and that we're all really clear on what success looks like, at least until we get the data, and we might tweak it. But I think the consulting part of coaching is just as, if not more important than the coaching itself. It's like managing all the stakeholder
yeah.
relationships.
Plus, I think you actually touched on something that we haven't talked about yet on the podcast, was this idea of in the past, maybe in the 80s and maybe in some companies still, is companies will use a coach to provide feedback, which the leader actually if we're coaching their direct report, they're the one that needs to be delivering that feedback and not using the third party coach to deliver that feedback, because that is it's like the beginnings of an unhealthy relationship. And where's the trust there?
Yeah, I mean, it ruins
Yeah.
coaching in the company too.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, because the response, at least when I first started, I think um, we gave coaching to all these future executives in this one program, and they responded to me, "What did I do wrong?" when they got a coach.
Mhm.
And so there was a culture of coaching that said, "Oh, you get a coach when you've done something wrong." And obviously, and the other implied is your supervisor doesn't want to tell you what that is. So they're going to use a coach to do that. And I I
Yeah.
would hope that anybody listening, that your company does not do that. It's not healthy practice. It's not really good for the future of coaching or the present of coaching either. So good. Giselle, we have a question that we would want to ask you as someone that gives coaching. What would you, if you were to receive coaching, what would you want from a coach?
Oh, I do receive coaching. I have multiple coaches. I'm rarely without at least one, if not a whole band of allies. And it may sound so trite. I think one of the most important behaviors for all humans on the planet, not to over exaggerate, is that of true, deep, connected listening. And when I feel truly heard, and often the conversations are fairly slow, I know the slower we go and the more they hear me, it's just can be incredible. And obviously, I mean, it's kind of coaching 101. But what I've also learned is the shorter, most powerful questions. So it's like, imagine, and I think I've said this to both of you, imagine each of your words costs $5. When a coach asks questions that are $35, $40 worth, right? It's much more powerful than when we as coaches, and this is one of my areas I work on, is how to shrink my questions to be very concise. So I really appreciate that as well.
Dave, you want to ask the next question?
I do. I'm letting. I want to ask it in as few words as possible now, and I'm challenged.
It's going to cost you
I
$20.
it's what is that? That was I'm already up to. I think I'm up to 100.
You're at 30. It's a $30
I
question,
know, right?
Dave. It's
It's
$30
totally
question.
it's totally disruptive when you start putting the Freakonomics context on it. Actually,
Yeah.
that's the only thing that really got me to be very focused.
I love that exercise. I've tried it with coins in person, like gold coins. Like for each coin you put in for a group conversation, and then you run out of coins. You can only get one back when you ask a question. So, but I love the idea with coaches. I got to figure out a way to actually do that virtually. So thank you for that. What are
Yeah.
3 books or other learning experiences that you recommend for coaches who are developing?
Gosh, there's so many. So one of my favorite books for coaches is I don't exactly know how to pronounce his name, but the Michael Bungay Stanier, The Coaching Habit book, is a book, Say Less, Ask More, and Change the Way You Lead Forever. There are 7 questions that he has. He's got these different chapters by question. And I think this is a fantastic book to be thinking about to develop coaching skills. Another one is more of a leadership book. Is that okay? Can I share a leadership book too? One of my
Sure. Yeah, we've
Okay,
got
so
all
one of my
kinds.
partners wrote a book called 52 Lessons in Leadership. And the reason I like this book is because it's very short and sweet. And each chapter is only, 2 or 3 pages. So for our goldfish size focus brains these days, I think he's done an incredible job taking so many leadership distinctions and chunking it down to the 52. And you can not only get these clear distinctions you can use with a leader or a team, he's got exercises that he uses when we work with teams. There's a trust model in here. There are lots of different models that you can utilize. So you can utilize it as a reference book very quickly and utilize some of those tools in one-on-one coaching as well. And another book that it's not a coaching book at all. It's more of a transformational book. So it's more of a poetry book. So it's not your usual, is a book by Mark Nepo called The Book of Awakening. And it's a book that is one of those, classic, every day there's a different message. This is the one that I use. I think it can be really powerful for us as coaches and humans and parents and people. I think the way we start our day really matters. And I've spent some energy and created rituals basically at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. And I have rituals for, like your question about music, the rituals I do before I go speak publicly. And if I need to raise my energy or lower my energy, I call them my power practices. And so one of the power practices is a daily ritual around reading a reading before a quiet like meditation time. And I think Mark Nepo's book is truly outstanding and really powerful.
I love that, and I'm so glad you included a book of poetry. We were talking last time, and
I
Matt said
forbid him to actually read poetry on the podcast. I just said we don't have to do poetry, Dave.
Oh,
yeah, right, Giselle. Are you in shock?
but you can.
Yeah, you can.
You don't have to,
Yeah,
and you can. I was literally in a meeting last night. It was not a work meeting. And the way we opened up the meeting, there were 6 of us and everybody brought a poem. And you can't even believe the impact that it had because our poems were all very different. And it said just as much about us for what was going on for us that picked the poem as the the loveliness of the poem that was picked.
I love that. That makes me want to kick right into reflections, and I think I want to thank Giselle again, which I don't know if I have done over the years. Is you created the space where we all met. Like so many of my connections are based on the space that you created, and I wanted to just thank you for that. I don't think I ever have, so I really appreciate that.
You are most welcome.
I'm going to read that book, and Matt doesn't know this, but I'm going to randomly like pick a poem for other sessions and bring it in. And I'm going to say Giselle gave me permission. and then the other reflection for me for this, like as we were talking to you, I think that power of creating that balance of safe space and having somebody advocate for themselves, whether it's speaking truth to power. And the last piece is the importance of like defining those connections, right? Your relationship with some of it's the consultative stuff you mentioned, but you're in partnership and you're connected. And I think that's part of what makes people feel safe is knowing what those connections are, boundaries, etc. So thank you for sharing that with us today.
You are welcome. You're most welcome. It's so good to be with both of you.
And I would say my reflection, Giselle, you talked about something in preparation for coaching that sometimes in a hurried way that I would skip over, and just reminded me of that. Like, hey, look, there is a heart preparation that I need to do in prepping to go have a conversation, and almost like checking in. Hey, am I willing to be lovingly provocative? Do I need to say something? Do I need the courage to say something? Maybe it is a prayer. Maybe it's a poem. Maybe it's something that I need to actually remind myself, like, hey, look, I'm in service of this client, and I need to serve them in a way in this conversation that I hope they would never forget that conversation, or it would change the way they show up through their own reflection on it. Using storytelling or anything like that. That's what I love. And I'm always very cautious on sharing stories about my kids, but you did it in a way that was really anonymous. So I really appreciate that. And that's just a reminder that, we can find those things in our life. I've
Yeah, I think it's
yeah.
really about intentionality, right? Just being intentional about what we want to create, the space we want to create for other people.
And I just one thing, there was somebody that was a part of our council that I saw one of their direct reports this week at the Uplift conference, and I said one of the things that I so appreciated about the community that you did create, because it was a real community, or it is a real community, is we were bold in things that we took back. It wasn't that it wasn't something that happened, but it was sort of this strength in numbers that we were able to say, I think I can go try that in my company too. And I heard that the first time, I'm like, that's not real. Come on. And that was like early days. But when I heard enough people say it and I began to hear those things, and I was like, I'm going to try that and see what happens.
Yeah, it's like the 6 word, like, what have we got to lose when we've
Yeah.
got this community of
Yeah.
people
So thank
supporting
you.
us?
Thanks for being here with us. Appreciate it.
Mm.
One of the things that we'd
Mm.
like to be sure that if you are a follower of this podcast, if you're not yet, we would ask that you would follow, whether it's on Google or Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We also have a Instagram, account. I think it doesn't really have anything on it yet, but if you are actually, I will actually tell you what it is. It's at leadership.the.secret sauce. So no dot in between secret and sauce. And that we'd ask that you would actually go and follow us. We will be posting stuff online. So there. Dave, you want to share our last sponsor message?
Absolutely. And just to be clear, Matt's daughter is our social media consultant. So Matt can't talk about his children because they'll actually listen to the podcast. Just saying, Matt. Are you feeling stuck or overwhelmed? Right. Character Matters Coaching and Consulting provides leadership coaching and consulting to empower you to overcome obstacles and reach your full potential. Visit charactermatters.us.com to learn more about their transformative coaching and how to get connected to Matt for your organization.
Giselle, we really appreciate the time. Thank you so much for joining us. And
Oh, you're welcome. It was great. And please follow me on LinkedIn. My name is Giselle Garcia Shelley, and I post not too frequently. I just post when there's something super important to say or share. I'm a real fan of not wasting people's time, and over posting. So it'd be great. And our website is cascadeleaders.com or leadboldly.com.
Excellent. And so we will also put these links in the show notes in case that you didn't get that down. Thank you, everyone. Until next time, have a great day.